A Nevada mother is now facing a first-degree murder charge in the death of her 5-year-old daughter, Izabella Loving. Prosecutors claim Andrea Loving's case was upgraded after investigators uncovered more evidence pointing to severe long-term abuse and neglect. We are breaking down what led to that charge, what authorities say changed, and what comes next in this case with a family law attorney. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Let me tell you something. If you think the crime stories that I cover every day are scary, wait until you hear what's happening with your personal data online. Your name, your phone number, your address, it's all out there. It's easy for anybody to find. But our sponsor, Incogni, they help you disappear online. They track down where your personal information is being exposed, like on search sites or old forum posts, and they demand its removal. Look, when I signed up, they found over 50 databases of my information, and within days, it all started coming down. Setup just takes a few minutes. You create an account, you authorize Incogni to do the rest, and with their new unlimited plan's custom removals feature, you can submit specific links and a team of privacy experts will personally remove them. So if you care about protecting yourself online, and I really hope that you do, take your privacy back with Incogni, and you can use Sidebar for 60% off an annual plan. A Nevada mother is now accused of murdering her 5-year-old daughter, a child that investigators say showed signs of severe, long-term abuse and neglect before she died. Prosecutors in Washoe County, Nevada have filed an expanded first-degree murder charge against Andrea Loving in connection with the death of Izabella Loving, who was found unresponsive inside of her home near Reno earlier this year. That Izabella died after her father, so we're talking about Nicholas Loving, we'll focus more on him in a second, that he killed Izabella by, quote, hitting and or kicking and or dragging and or whipping and or otherwise striking the victim and or by shoving the victim's head against a wall. Investigators say this little girl had extensive injuries, signs of malnutrition, medical neglect, and until now, only Izabella's father had faced that murder charge, but that has changed. We now have video of Andrea Loving taken into custody on that upgraded charge. This is courtesy of Reno News 4, and prosecutors say that the new evidence led them to expand the case. So here's what we know and how it got to this point. According to the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, the investigation began early in the morning on April 3rd. This is when deputies were called to a home in Cold Springs. It's a rural community north of Reno. First responders, they arrive after a report of an unresponsive child. That child was again 5-year-old Izabella Loving, and despite life-saving efforts, Izabella was pronounced dead at the scene. And almost immediately, deputies say they noticed what they described as significant signs of trauma on her body, that this was no accident. The scene was secured, detectives were called in to begin a full investigation, and the court records and reporting from News 4 Reno show that investigators observed numerous visible injuries on Izabella. We are talking bruising. We are talking about other marks that raised serious red flags. The medical examiner would later determine that Izabella died from bacterial pneumonia, but that blunt force injuries, malnutrition, dehydration, medical neglect, they were all significant contributing factors to this little girl's death. And Izabella, she lived in that home with her parents, Nicholas and Andrea. She also lived with several siblings. We'll talk about them more in a minute. According to law enforcement, both parents were interviewed in the hours after Izabella's death. And investigators say the explanations that were given for this little girl's injuries involved a series of alleged accidents, falls, other things like that. But authorities ultimately determined that those explanations didn't match up. They didn't align with the extent or the pattern of these perceived injuries. And as the investigation continued, detectives also looked very closely at Izabella's living conditions and her medical history. And instead of getting the care that her daughter needed, authorities claim that Andrea did some Google searching. What did she allegedly search for? Quote, signs my child is dying. Dark blood on boil when popping. How long can you go without food? Kidneys failing. My 5-year-old is peeing blood. Those are the alleged searches. Within days, prosecutors moved forward with charges against Izabella's father, Nicholas Loving. He was initially charged with child abuse causing substantial bodily injury, later faced a more serious charge of murder. This is again after the medical examiner ruled Izabella's death a homicide. Andrea was arrested earlier on in the investigation on child abuse-related charges, but for months, prosecutors stopped short of charging her with murder. This is even as apparent public attention and community outrage grew. And investigators, prosecutors, they continued reviewing evidence, conducting interviews, analyzing records, and it was on December 23rd that the Washoe County District Attorney's Office announced a major development. Prosecutors formally upgraded the case against Andrea, charging her with first-degree murder along with additional counts of child abuse or neglect causing substantial bodily harm. And in response, the Washoe County Sheriff's Office released a statement emphasizing the significance of this move, saying, quote, "With the recent filing of expanded charges against Andrea Loving by the Washoe County District Attorney's Office, our agency remains steadfast in our commitment to Izzy and to ensuring that every aspect of this investigation is carried forward with the highest level of care and thoroughness. This development marks another significant step toward achieving full accountability for the tragedy that occurred." And as we said earlier, Isabella's father, Nicholas, is already facing a murder charge. You have Sheriff Darren Balam, who echoed that message in a separate statement, saying, "We continue to work closely with the District Attorney's Office as this case progresses through the criminal justice system, and we remain deeply grateful for the collaboration among all partner agencies involved from the very beginning." Authorities say the decision to expand the charges, it came after investigators uncovered evidence suggesting Isabella's abuse was not isolated, that it wasn't accidental, that it was ongoing, that Andrea Loving may have known about the injuries, not only failed to intervene, but tried to cover all this up, took steps after Isabella's death that raised serious legal concerns. And those details, including what Andrea allegedly told investigators and what police say happened in the hours after Izabella was found unresponsive, they're all laid out in court documents. And that's what we want to go to next. So to do that, let me break this all down, the latest developments in the case with family law attorney Randy Kessler. Randy, thank you so much for taking the time. Always appreciate it. When prosecutors upgrade a case like this to first-degree murder, months later, what does that tell you about what they believe happened and what, maybe more importantly, they believe they can prove happened?
I think your point number two is exactly what happened. They got to get her with something, right? She absolutely condoned this, let this happen, felony murder, cover up, conspiracy. You can throw all those things together, but first degree, they feel pretty confident now they're going to get her on that too. And also maybe putting the pressure on her to turn state's evidence. I mean, I can't imagine she's not going to be pointing the finger at him and saying, "I was terrified. He had me threatened with death if I said a word or didn't do anything." But they're ratcheting up the pressure. And yes, Jesse, they feel like they can prove murder one, so they're charging.
And listen, I mean, even in the filing, she already is or already has been pointing the finger at him. Is it unusual to see a change like that after some time? I mean, some people say, why not just charge her immediately with that? But that's not uncommon for it to take some time, right?
Nothing's uncommon in this world, right? They first charged with what they knew they could prove. Now they feel comfortable they're going to prove everything else. It's not that uncommon. Usually you charge with what you have because you feel confident enough about it. But, on the flip side, you can't prove the strongest charge. You don't want her to go away. You don't want to let her go. You got to charge her with what you got. So they charged with what they had. Then they built the case and charged her with what they could prove.
And by the way, just to be clear about something from a legal perspective, if a parent didn't, let's just for argument's sake, didn't physically cause every injury that was sustained by the child, or physically or directly cause the death of that child, if they don't intervene, if they don't call law enforcement, if they don't get medical help for the child, they can still be on the hook, right?
Right. And there are two parts to that question. One is, if they don't cause every damage, well, you don't know which act was one that led to the murder. So maybe it was the act that she did by pushing the child once, or maybe the not reporting or not bringing the child in. But yes, assuming part two of your question is, she did nothing wrong except for not report it, not bring the child to help, she still can be charged. Maybe not with murder one, but if she commits any crime, right? Whether it's conspiracy, whether it's covering up a crime, whether it's concealing a crime, whether it's false imprisonment, that's a felony. And then you get her for felony murder because a murder happened while she was in the commission of another crime.
Sometimes when we talk about murder cases or even child abuse cases, it can be a one-act thing. It could be a one-incident thing. Why is it important here to establish a pattern?
Well, number one, because it shows that she was more likely to have committed a murder than it to have been an accident. But number two, it's an aggravating factor, right? It's something that the jury is going to think, okay, one time, maybe my mind can't wrap around the idea that a parent could do this to a child. Maybe two times. But this many times, the jury is going to be blown away. And I cannot imagine that anybody on the jury is going to think that mom and dad didn't cause the death of this little girl.
So I want to start with what Andrea Loving herself allegedly told detectives about the abuse happening inside that home. And this goes back to something that you mentioned earlier, Randy, about who she seems to be pointing the finger at, because according to the affidavit, investigators write, and this is a direct quote, Andrea also revealed that she recently witnessed Nicholas kick Izabella, essentially in the genitals. On Sunday, March 30th, 2025, she witnessed Nicholas drag Izabella by the way, it's blacked out, but we're assuming they're talking about Izabella, drag Izabella by the collar or hood of her sweatshirt up the stairs as Izabella struck the steps with her body as they went. Immediately after that, Andrea heard Nicholas yelling and a loud thud against the wall as if he had thrown Izabella against the wall, and she struck her head. Andrea admittedly did not intervene, nor did she call 911. So Randy, back to you. From a legal standpoint, how significant is this account, and can we believe it? Can we believe that's what happened?
I think it's believable only because it's not an attempt to get off the hook. She's not saying, I saw my husband do something wrong and I reported it, or I tried to protect my child. She's saying, I saw this horrible stuff going on to my daughter and I did nothing. That makes it believable because she's got no reason to do that except to say, I'm trying to tell you it wasn't me, but she doesn't realize her saying it wasn't me isn't saving her. You know, I saw somebody do something and I could have prevented it or I could have reported it, but I did nothing. In a jury's mind, in my mind, just as bad, maybe worse.
And the affidavit then details what investigators say happened after Izabella was found unresponsive, and why prosecutors believe this wasn't panic, but it was deliberation, right? It was a cover-up. It was planning. So again, quoting directly, Andrea and Nicholas spent the next several hours talking about their options and what they should do. Andrea said Nicholas wanted to hide Izabella's body in the backyard and run to his parents' home in Virginia. Andrea told Nicholas they could not do that. Nicholas told Andrea, well, we can't leave it here, it'll rot. Nicholas said he did not want to call for help because he did not want to lose his family. And the affidavit goes even further, describing what Andrea Loving told investigators about who she believed caused Izabella's death. Here's the quote. Andrea was asked if Nicholas killed Izabella, and Andrea answered, yeah. So from a defense perspective, Randy, if you were defending not Andrea, but you were defending Nicholas, what do you do with statements like this? Particularly, if the physical injuries corroborate her version of events. I mean, what would Nicholas do in a situation like this? Try to put the blame on her?
Yeah, I mean, all you could do is attack credibility. You could say, why was there even a conversation? If that was true, and she was saying, we can't do this or planning, why were they even having a conversation about it? She should have reported to the police and, gone right after him and said, look, I'm a good mom. This is a terrible guy that I'm married to. You got to attack her credibility. It's the only person you have to point the finger at is the other defendant. And I can't imagine that they're going to get away with it. I can't imagine they'd go out for the plea for doing that. But that's all you got. There's only one other witness. Attack their credibility. So
do they believe her? Because she's charged with first-degree murder. Do they believe that he's responsible or she's responsible, both are responsible? I mean, how much of her account are they believing if they're charging with first-degree murder?
Well, I think they might believe her account that doesn't absolve her of first-degree murder just because she talked about it, just because she complained about it, just because she felt bad about it. She did nothing about it. She was part of it. She was part of the action. She was in the vehicle. She was in the house. She was part of the whole process, the whole methodology, the whole operation. She's part of it. The real question may be, who does a jury hate more for killing their child, a father or a mother? We've covered cases in the past, a mother killing their own child sometimes is much more impactful than a father killing their own child. I mean, you're gonna have these defendants go at each other sooner or later.
By the way, I don't know this for sure. I apologize, but do you think they would be tried together or separately in one trial or two separate trials? And would there be a motion on the part of their defense attorneys to sever it?
I think whichever one thinks they have a better shot at being separate is going to move for it to be separate. Whoever's going to point the finger at the other one, which sounds like mom. If I was mom, I'd say prosecute dad first. I will help you prosecute dad. I will make sure you get him convicted, and then limit the sentencing, limit what I could possibly be sentenced with. Even if I have to go to trial, take the death penalty off the table, something like that.
This is another part that we got to talk about. So investigators also claim that Andrea admitted to actively trying to control what information came out afterward. And this included, or allegedly included, involving the other children. Again, directly from the affidavit, quote, Andrea said she told the children to lie and say Izabella's injuries were from, so apparently another child, and to not talk about Izabella sleeping in the small storage cabinet. Randy, that is just a whole other level there. How does that alleged instruction, telling children to essentially lie, conceal living conditions, A, how are they going to prove that? And B, how does that support a first-degree murder theory?
It's just another aggravating factor. It's horrible. I mean, and many times the cover-up is worse than the actual crime, only because the cover-up is when the bad thing has been done, whether it was split second, whether it was bad judgment, whether it was an accident. But then when you're thinking about how to cover it up, you're plotting, you're manipulating. That's offensive to a lot of people. How do they prove it? Other than the affidavit, I don't know how they prove it.
Well, let me ask you that. So obviously they could just, say, hey, this is what she said, right? Or do they have to call these children as witnesses?
They could. I don't know if they would want to traumatize those children. It sounds like, is she going to contest it? Is she going to refute the affidavit now? Is she going to give them an opportunity to cross-examine her and say, so now when you're facing the death penalty or life in jail, you're saying that wasn't true. Back when you signed this affidavit, which was closer to the event in time, when your memory was better, then it wasn't true. I mean, she's sort of stuck. I think she has to say, yeah, I said it because that's what I did, and she needs to fall on the sword. Giving an opportunity to the prosecutors to cross-examine her, boy, that's a field day for them.
And I got to talk about this too. So the affidavit also documents apparent inconsistencies in Andrea Loving's timeline, particularly about when Izabella was discovered. So here's how investigators describe it. Quote, during Andrea's interview, she initially denied any type of violence toward Izabella committed by either her or Nicholas. And she told the story about finding Izabella not breathing at around 7 a.m. Andrea described when she went to bed at 1 a.m., Izabella was breathing. Andrea woke up around 2 a.m. and checked on Izabella, and that is when she realized Izabella was not breathing. Problem, right? So Randy, from a legal standpoint, the shifting timelines, the shifting details, I'd imagine for a defense attorney, let me rephrase, from Nicholas's defense attorney perspective, it's great, right? If they are relying, let's say she's a cooperating witness, she gave conflicting accounts. How possibly, jury, can you believe this woman when she's telling investigators one thing and then another? I think if she does turn on him and takes some sort of deal and testifies against him, this is great for his attorney. But is this problematic for prosecutors?
I think it's very common for prosecutors, right? It's sort of like the guy who says, I wasn't drinking and driving. Well, here's a video of you driving. Okay, I was driving, but I wasn't drinking. Well, here's a bottle of you drinking. Oh, well, I was drinking soda. It wasn't beer. Well, here's a close-up. It's beer. When she knows she's going to get caught, she twists and turns. Very common. People that lie will keep lying until they're caught dead right. I think she's a liar and a murderer, and I don't think that this is going to help her. It's going to help and I don't think it's going to hurt the prosecution.
Randy Kessler, thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.